Welcome back, Break Chains family, to the study of the three Hebrew boys. Oh my goodness. All I can say is God is just very good. The first video, I said that this would be one of the Bible studies that, you go through and you're just not going to be the same again. And yeah, that's for sure. I've definitely dragged this out longer than I had anticipated. This was really supposed to be released in Black History Month, February, but honestly, I was being tested. And as I said in the previous video, when you're being tested, be quiet. Okay? Don't be talking, don't talk to people, and don't exit the test, right? Because if you leave the classroom, it's assumed that you're going to go cheat. So that means that you automatically get a zero if you leave during a test, right? So I didn't leave. I just was like, I ain't finna post because right now, what I'm gonna say is gonna be crazy, and y'all gonna be like, who, what, what? Yeah. So many posts ago, many posts ago, many, um, yeah, it was several posts ago. Why am I saying that? That's so weird. The beginning of this Facebook um, ministry, I put a post that I would never post if I wasn't right with God, if it wasn't coming from God, and I stand by that. So if you ever see me being quiet or taking breaks, it's because I'm taking a test, okay? And I don't want to sit up here and say something crazy, and the image of God is um, diluted because of that. Me being a disciple of Jesus, I am to reflect his character at all times. If I feel like my flesh is rising up, I need to take a step back. Rather that be me taking a step back, hey, let me go into prayer and fasting. A step back is, I'm not going to post and wait till, um, cooler heads can prevail. Or um, just simply touching on something else in the meantime. Or all three, which I have done. So, and to be also honest too, um, there's a lot of stuff in my personal testimony when I get to it that I wanted to say, and God's like, you can't say that. That's not of me. That's not giving me any type of glory. You're trying to put your own personal feelings, and you're trying to show who you are. And we just talked about this. It ain't about you. It stopped being about me when I decided to go in that watery grave and give my life to Jesus. That's when it stopped being about me. That's when the moment I'm supposed to reflect his character. And I've been in a watery grave. I don't even know. I lost count. And I'm not trying to be funny. No, I'm serious. I lost count. I've been rebaptized that many times. I wasn't getting it. No, I finally got it. You know, when I joined the church 2009. Oh, right. So like 10 years later, that was 2019 was the last time I got baptized. So it took me 10 years to finally get it. But praise God, I did get it. Because some people go a lifetime and they still don't get it. So I can't get upset. I'm not embarrassed. One thing that God told me, because I was like, God, I'm so embarrassed. I get rebaptized so many times. And God told me, He said, if people were as honest in their walk with me as you were, they would be getting more. Most of these people would be getting more, getting baptized more than you. So the moral of the story is, don't be worried about other people. Okay, if they are talking about you, I guarantee you 100% of the time they need to put their behinds in the water too. And they're probably in denial and don't want to do it because they're afraid of what people are going to say or think. But usually, when people are speculating or they're pointing out your flaws, it's because either they need to be doing with what you're doing, or they were supposed to do what you did but failed at it. So they want you to fail at it, so they make fun of you or they talk about you to make themselves feel better. Trust me, I've been through a lot in my life that you can take that to the bank. Um, but the moral of the story, once again, is don't worry about other people. Your walk with God is your walk with God. You don't have to explain yourself to anyone. And if you're in the company or your circle of close people that you call friends, they're not your friends. If you have to prove yourself or prove your calling to them, they're not your friend. If you feel like, or you having to explain yourself to people who are so-called love you, then they don't really love you. I remember also in 2019, I went to a women's conference, women's, I don't know why I said that, women's conference, where that's the last time I got baptized, where the person said that there are takeoff assassins. So whenever there is a, I'm sure there's a more elegant term for it, a rocket ship, I can't think of it, it's getting ready to blast off and go into space, there are takeoff assassins. So whenever God is getting ready to take you to the next level, or he's getting ready to bless you, Satan sends takeoff assassins. These are people who do everything in their power for you not to go to the next level. And these people are the closest to you. In a Facebook post, I put, remember, Satan was the closest angel. He was the highest angel in heaven. The reason why he got so big headed is because of that reason. He was clothed in all the jewels, and this is in Ezekiel chapter 18. He was very, very beautiful, and he knew everything because God was telling him to tell the other angels. And it got to his head. He started pumping, feeling himself. This is why when God is trying to do something in your life, you don't need to tell nobody. You know, I can't say which one is, you know, because I wasn't planning on talking about this. Um, I can't remember exactly how it goes, but Jesus was like, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. The reason why he said that is listen, when you're working for God, the devil will send any and everyone to stop you. And it's the ones who's closest to you who you think got your back, and they may really love you. They may, keyword I said they may listen, may really love you, but they are letting Satan get a hold of them, and they want to disrupt what God has for you. They don't want you to take off. Some people only love you when you're mediocre, and that's what the pastor said. And that's a hard pill to swallow. I'm not proud of it, but let's just be real. We all have people in our lives who we're like, who are doing worse off than you, and we all that one person pops into everyone's head. Now imagine that one person starting to take off, and they're getting ready to pass you, so to speak. That's what you think in your mind, and then they don't have someone to look down and make themselves feel better. So to some people, they only love you, or they're only your friend, or they only have you around to make them feel better about themselves. They love you being mediocre, um, jobless, broke, married, no kids, or kids, but not married, however, whatever your situation is. Um, they want you to stay like that because that way, in their mind, they're better than you. Because that's the only way that they can feel good about themselves. And remember, these people don't feel good about their own selves, so don't take it personal. But that's only if they can feel good about themselves. And the reason why Jesus said, don't, he was basically telling you, don't be telling people your business. Don't be telling people what God doing for you. Let them just see it, because they will say and do all kind of stuff to make you mess up your blessing. They will, because they'll start getting, because since you're telling them everything, they're going to start to feel like it should be them. It should be their blessing. Why is it you? This isn't fair. I look better than them. I've been in the church longer. I'm fill in the blank. I'm more holier than they are. I feel this whatever they however they feel. And um and they'll do any and everything to sabotage your blessing. So it's very important that when God is working in your life and He's giving you things, that you keep that to yourself until it's time to reveal it. That's why when I'm taking a test, I'm quiet, because I need to keep it to myself. I don't want to say it on this platform. I don't want to say it in a Facebook post, because then people are going to, that's going to, not even people, let me stop saying flesh, because we wrestle not against flesh and blood. But Satan will use that for his advantage. And I don't want to give him any ammo. I want to make sure that whatever God has for me, that I don't mess it up, that I do it in a way that brings him glory. And it's not about my glory, because if I was to look good, then it was about me, how I'm presented, God couldn't get the glory. It'll be all about me. And anywho, that's a little segue into that. But yeah, I didn't mean to talk about that, but the Holy Spirit leads how He leads. But yeah, that's very important for you to understand. If you don't get anything else from this Bible study, is remember, when you're being tested, to keep your mouth shut. Okay? So, just the last chapter, King Nebuchadnezzar was worshiping and proclaiming that Jehovah was God of gods and Lord of kings, and these three men plus Daniel was given high positions. They had favor with him when they were able to provide him a need. Ha! Listen, key word, like I've been saying. But now that they won't bow and put him before God, they are a problem. Saints, it's very important that you do not get attached to people, that you do not get attached or dependent of people's approval. It is very fleeting. One day they will build you up, and the next day they will tear you down. The same ones that spoke over you in your ministry will be the same ones trying to tear it down. But if you were to be honest, how many times have we done the same thing to God? We serve and stand up for God when it is right, and when it's convenient or benefits us. But the moment we're getting ready to face persecution, we're going through a trial, or God is asking you to let go of a sin that we hold dear to our hearts, now He's the enemy. Jesus said in Luke chapter 22, saying, "The Son of Man must suffer many things, and be rejected of the elders, chief priests, and scribes, and be slain, and be raised the third day." Verse 23, "And he said to them all, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself, and take up his cross daily, and follow me." Verse 24, "For whosoever shall save his life shall lose it, but whosoever will lose his life for my sake, the same shall save it. For what it, sorry, so for what is this?" That still ain't right. "For what is a man advantage if he gains the whole world and lose himself, or be cast away?" And that's very important too. What a castaway is someone who was able to lead people to God and was able to save souls for God, but them themselves are not saved. Listen, if you're going to be cleaning other people's houses, you got to make sure yours is clean first. Hello. Hey. Verse 26, for whosoever shall be ashamed of me, of my words, of him shall the Son of Man be ashamed when he shall come in his own glory and in his Father's glory and of the holy angels. I added a little something there. Sorry, Lord, I wasn't trying to add to the scripture. And in Luke chapter 14, verse 26, if any man come to me and hate not his father, mother, and wife, and children, and brethren, and sisters, yea, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. So, I know what trips people up with this, and it did trip me up too. Wait. You talking about that I need to hate everybody, including myself, but you just told me I need to love everybody. I'm confused. So Jesus doesn't really literally mean hate them. It's just that because you're choosing Jesus over them, it feels like hate to them because you will not choose sin. You will not choose disobeying God over that person or because of that person. And because these people are working in the flesh and they're letting Satan use them, they think it is about them, and it's not about them. It's a spiritual battle. Ephesians chapter 6, starting in verse 12, tells us that it's a spiritual battle. It's not between you and them. It's between which God are you going to serve? Are you going to serve the God that created the heavens and the earth? Or are you going to serve the ruler of this world? And some people, they choose to serve the ruler of this world. But it's one thing that we have to remember. When you pass a test or you move on, when you pass a test or class, you move on to something harder. And you must remember all the things you remembered you did all, sorry. You must remember all the things you learned along the way to help you at the next level. That's very important. So, where I failed at, and I'll get more deeper into that in the next testimony, is that when you go through a test, it's very, very important that you still go over the notes and to go over the test itself, whether you fail or you pass it, because you are going to be presented, or the material is going to be presented to you in a different way. So it may be that you need to retake the test because you failed it, or it may be that you're getting ready to go to a harder class or take a harder test. Now, even when you go up to the next level, the stuff that you learned on the previous level still applies to what's happening in the next level. This is just to challenge you even more, for you to have even more understanding. When you're taking classes and you get higher and higher and higher, it's still technically under the same subject, but it gets harder and more intricate, and you become more knowledgeable in that subject. That's why whenever you have a major, the majority of your classes, keyword is called why I call it major, the majority of your classes are in this subject. So you become an expert, right? So that's the same thing with God. When he tests you, you still need to remember what you learned on the first level and apply it to each level, because it's still applicable. What you learn is still applicable to another level. It's just getting a little bit more complex. Like when you think about elementary school, you learn adding and subtracting. Even when you take algebra, even when you take calculus, all those very, very complex mathematics, you don't disregard or throw away adding and subtracting. Adding and subtracting is still part of it. It's in a more complex way. I hope that makes sense. So here we go. Here comes the persecution. Mm-mm-mm. My. It's one thing you also need to remember too. When you see someone acting a fool, trying to embarrass you, remember that that is not of God. Rather, God put them in your life or not. If He puts you in a place, if He puts you in someone's life, if He puts you in their path, if they start acting a fool, that is not a correlation between them and God. That means at this point, this person is letting themselves, aka the devil, take control of them, and they are puffing up themselves. Because in the Garden of Eden, he told Eve that she would be like a god. That's why she ate the fruit. She disobeyed God. Anytime that you disobey God, you're basically saying, I want to be my own God. I want to puff up myself. I want to be seen. So the ego is very fragile, and the ego would do anything to protect itself because ego is equals translation itself. So anytime you see someone acting crazy or doing stuff and trying to make a fool of you and all that, that means that their ego has taken over. They're trying to preserve self and they're not in the spirit of God because God says to be humble, be meek. One of the fruits of the spirit is meekness. And meekness is not trying to puff up yourself or trying to embarrass someone. I had to learn that the hard way. I'm trying to help somebody out. I really am. So anyway, let's get into the verses and then we get into my testimony. So here comes persecution. Then was Nebuchadnezzar full of fury, and the form of his visage was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Therefore he spake and commanded that they should heat the furnace 17 times more than it was to be heated. And he commanded the most mighty men that were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and to cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their coats, their hosen, and their hats, and their other garments, and were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore, because the king's commandment was urgent, the furnace exceedingly hot, the flames of the fire slew those men that took up Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego. I know, I just switched their names. Um, yeah, so the very ones who are throwing you in the fire are the same ones who are going to catch the backlash of it. But the most important thing is to walk with Jesus in the fire. Gonna see what I mean in a minute. And the glory of God is revealed. These three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down, bound into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king was astonished, and rose up in haste, and spake, and said unto his counselors, Did not we cast three men bound into the midst of the fire? They answered and said unto the king, True, O king. He answered and said, Lo, I see four men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt. The form of the fourth is like the Son of God. Then Nebuchadnezzar came near to the mouth of the burning fiery furnace, and spake and said, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, ye servants of the Most High, came forth, come hither. Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came forth of the midst of the fire. And this verse that I'm about to read is very, very important and I am going to go into it, why it's so important. So, and the princes, governors, captains, and the king's counselors, being gathered together, saw these men upon whose bodies the fire had no power, nor was an hair of their heads singed, neither were their coats changed, nor the smell of the fire had passed on them. So the reason why I'm pointing out this verse is something I had to learn, and I'll go deeper into this when I get to my personal testimony. So, see, some of us can go through the fire and go through the trials, but we can't say that, oh, we came out with no smell of the fire, nor was a hair of our head singed, neither were our coats changed. Because a lot of times we go through the trial and you can tell we've been through the trial. Okay, people can smell the smoke. They can see that your hair is burnt. You might have a bald spot. You know what I'm saying? You may, your clothes, they look singed. You know what I'm saying? The reason why I'm saying this is because sometimes when we go through a trial, after the trial, we may have passed the test, but we turn away from God because we're angry. All right, I passed the test, God, but we didn't get what we thought we were going to get just by passing the test. hmm See, Jesus brought us through the fire, but in the middle of the fire, we were looking around. Okay, we may have not stayed close to Jesus, walked with him. We may have staggered behind because it's hot. You know, you feeling the flames, and you starting to rethink some things, or you may go ahead of God, okay, because you feel like you got it. You don't really need Him. You're gonna take matters into your own hand, and what happens is you get burnt. You get a little singed. God doesn't let that trial consume you, but you talk different. You act different, not in a good way. Like I said, you stink. You smell. Smell. I can tell you. People can tell you've been through some things. And here's your hint: when you tell people your testimony, some people, if you're not smelling and you came out completely untouched, this is people's reaction. Oh my gosh, I would have never known. But if you stink, okay, your hair done got burnt up. Your clothes done got singed by the fire. When you tell people your testimony, they go, "Oh, that's what's okay." They look like, "Okay, that's what's wrong. Okay, that's why you act the way you act." Mm. It's very key that before the trial, during the trial, and after the trial, that we stay fully connected to God and we're truly transformed by it. Because if not, guess what? Homeboy gonna make you go through it all over again. Because you think you didn't fully get it. You did not get it. All right, verse 28. Then Nebuchadnezzar spake and said, Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who hath sent his angel and delivered his servants that trusted in him, and have changed the king's word and yielded their bodies, that they might not serve nor worship any god except their own. Therefore I make a decree that every people, nation, and language which speak anything amiss against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be cut into pieces, and their houses shall be made a dunghill, because there is no other God that can deliver after this sort. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. See? Because they were obedient. because they didn't go and run and tell people what to do. God's glory was revealed. Not Meshach, not Abednego, not Shadrach's glory. Even though they went through it and were not touched, that's how God's glory gets across the people. That's when God's character is shown through. When we can go through these trials and we don't change for the worse, but we show the glory of God all the way through, right? Because they could have, after they got out in the fiery furnace, they could have been like, oh, how dare you, king, look at me dancing and all this. See, I'm untouched. Ew, 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 ew. No, they didn't do all that because it wasn't going to glorify God. First of all, there's nothing they did. It was all God. And they know that. It was Jesus himself. And even even somebody who wanted to be worshipped could see that Jesus was in the midst of the fire. And it's not only through the good times that people can see God, it's how you act if you hold on to God in the bad times. That's when his glory can really be seen. A lot of people don't believe in the God of this Bible because of how the people, the so-called people who believe in his word, act. And there is a saying, and I think it's really, really true. People rather see a sermon than to hear a sermon, because anyone can talk and sound good, but if someone is truly living their life out serving God, that is more powerful than any Bible study, any sermon, or video or anything else. So I'm going to stop here because the video is getting into the 32-minute mark. The next time you hear me, I'll be going through my personal testimony. I believe I stopped in the year of 2010, and that's where I pick up. So as usual, like, comment, subscribe. Information is in the info box. If you want to email me or just want to say, hey, you have a prayer request or you have any needs, yeah, that's pretty much all I have. See you later, Break Chains family.